Listen, did y'all know Meghan Trainor married Junie from Spy Kids? I just got a video where this dude was busting moves like the thumbs did back in the day, and even read a press release for her new album that was, TMI. But I also bring this up because Robert Rodriguez's new movie feels like he was just remaking Spy Kids, but with a bigger budget. Now, that wouldn't be so much of a bad thing because those movies were my childhood. Like, everyone nowadays is talking about representation and getting their own version of a superhero, while Latinos had the OG Fantastic Four whooping Fegan Floops Fooglies back in the day. But as much as I respect Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron's crazy imagination,
this is the warrior who has to find her humanity. We need a movie like this right now. You always need a movie like this.
Bruh, no, let me explain. Now, like I said, I respect the hell out of Rodriguez. This man sold his literal blood to fund his early movies. He has one of the best books out there about filmmaking. He's made future Criterion films, but man, was this movie a stream it for me. I don't think it's bad, but there's a bunch of big budget world building movies that have been coming out recently that just flop, and they don't even feel like the movie has even started with their story. Like, Alita's based off of a manga with 9 volumes. They've already kind of skimmed through the first 4 in order to tell you this story, and if they're thinking of continuing it with sequels, they're off to a rough start. And that's where the budget confuses me, right? Like, yeah, Papa Cameron is like John Hammond when it comes to movie budgets.
Spared no expense.
But $170 million for production? Like, I'm sure there are Alita fans out there, right? But like, the Avengers don't even use that much when they're dealing with one of them. Even when they have that many people, at least it's a stacked cast to attract some. Alita, and then on top of the 170, who knows how much it was for the 2 years of advertising that they've done. I felt like they've been promoting this movie for so long, there was an ad for it in Spy Kids 3D. Of course, you can see where the money's going to, right? There's a lot of beautiful behind the scenes to it. You know, I'm not a big fan of 3D, but I can see where they put it in there. I'm just always asking, right, but where's the money coming from? There is an anime adaptation that was done in the 90s, in case that one piques your interest, but spoilers for the rest of this video as I try to figure out if this story was really worth this much. So the movie begins with Academy Award winner Christoph Waltz pulling a Wally at the junkyard. Supposedly Alita had been trashed for 300 years, and luckily nobody else has found this incredible technology, or it didn't even get buried, so Dr. Dyson sucks up her body parts and starts reconstructing her. As you may have heard, a father wanting to bring back his deceased child has been a running theme in Hollywood for whatever reason the last couple of months. So Dr. Octavius actually uses this robot's brain to try and recreate his deceased daughter by plugging her into the spare body that he had for his daughter. It's the future. He even gives her the daughter's Dora the Explorer clothes and even the daughter's name, Alita. And while I get that she looks like what every anime fan wants to be, I never really got why her eyes are so big. I guess it was to see who she was fighting, but like, can you imagine if Alita had to put on contacts? Which, I know, she's a robot, she doesn't need them, but Alita also eats, so I literally don't know where that crap goes. Both ways. The problem with Dr. Dyson is that he's taken more L's than Tory Lanez in this universe. Like, not only did he lose his daughter Jigsaw style, where it was actually a patient who came in and killed his loved one, but his wife also left him to be with the higher-ups. Man doesn't even get paid for the human repairs that he's doing. One dude legit comes in and pays him in fruit. Even his pseudo-daughter, who's walking around in a Mean Girls shirt, is doing everything to get away from him. She ends up meeting this dude who looks like he's 6 and 26 at the same time, and he's trying to protect her, not realizing that Alita's made of real steel. They come across these bounty hunters who, for whatever reason, keep the skin on their faces, even though the rest of them is metal, but, you know, I guess they paid for the actor, so, you know. But there's, like, so many other questions I have when it comes to this world. Like, why does Ed Skrein play an assassin that has a Mayan calendar on his back, considering that would have ended in 2012. How the hell was Christoph doing any damage walking around looking like the Underminer with that thing? And also, why did Jai Courtney come out of retirement just to appear in this movie for a whopping 5 seconds?
I gotta know everything that went into having Jai Courtney there for like 5 seconds.
Oh, you know what? It was just, that character is important in later stories.
Oh.
So we thought, well, it's hard to cast somebody that's just gonna be there for a blink, but we'll try and convince them, you know, that there would be a part later. It's kind of a strange proposition, you know, but Jai was so great. He was like, oh yeah, no shit, I'll come do it.
Thanks to her new friends, Alita's able to find an old ship that lets her remember a little bit about her past and the boy she loved before. But it turns out that she was, in fact, a battle angel that fought 300 years ago during the war between planet Earth and Mars. Before I even got the chance to figure out why there was a war between Earth and Mars, I realized that Alita was fighting for Mars on the moon, so Yo, is Alita the villain? Obviously, since they're setting up a sequel, prequel, and a theme park, they tell you absolutely nothing else about her past. Instead, we jump into an action scene where she beats up all of these assassins in a Kid's Gap shirt, and her goal then becomes to enter Salem, which is the Mars city that's stationed over their slums, because she believes that will answer all of the questions that the audience are looking for. While she's on her quest to do that, though, this Wilson Fisk-sized cyborg who she messed with earlier in the movie appears again looking like Scrappy-Doo in his new suit, and whoops, Alita. One thing that really surprised me is that we've all seen those Alita posters, and obviously since she has big eyes, we're drawn to that area, and we've seen that like red bed. Bro, it's dog's blood. Like, that big cyborg straight stomped on Toto, who was a dog who's been around the whole movie, and Alita's first instinct was to mark her face with the dead dog's blood. Are we about to see some teardrops tatted for the sequel? Jackie Earle Haley's cyborg then rips her apart as they battle underground, and let me tell you, I've seen Jordan play with the flu. I've seen Chilling pitch with a bloody ankle, but never in my life have I seen a girl missing 3 limbs karate kick a big mofo like Alita did and win this fight. Luckily, Dr. Dyson arrives in time and reluctantly transfers Alita's head over to her new body she found, finally giving her the energy and strength she needs to battle. Yo, and then I checked my watch, and it was still an hour and 20 minutes left of this movie. I'll say this about the 3D here, right? Since I watched it in IMAX, because, you know, I'm a sucker for IMAX, and I had no choice but to wear those aviators they gave you because it was in 3D, I'll say that I was swatting all over this movie. Like, even though I'm not the biggest fan of 3D, I didn't think it was terrible. It was able to add depth to the locations, but they kept doing this thing where they had a lot of characters walking in the foreground of the screen, which was cool at the beginning. But then it ended up looking like a bunch of people were getting up in front of me to leave, and they were covering the bottom of the screen as they were walking out. But then I remembered nobody showed up to begin with. We learn a little bit about Nova, who's supposed to be this immortal being up in Zalem who is able to control other cyborgs and possess their bodies so he can spy on people anywhere. And so he goes after Dr. Dyson's wife, Sharon, who, 1, is sporting the same look her husband had in another movie, and 2, is willing to do anything because after the death of her daughter, she wants to go up to Zalem. Now, I'm fully convinced that Nova, who again we know very little of, is somehow also hacked into Alita, but again, we won't find out about that until like Avatar 4. So the movie then decides to stop the action and becomes a teen romance for a bit.
Does it bother you that I'm not human?
You are the most human person I have ever met.
I'd give you my heart. That was pretty intense, huh?
Okay. So for starters, I've seen some people's think pieces that this is like a transgender story because of that line she says there at the beginning, and while I personally think there are way better ones out there for the community, if this one, with it being a big blockbuster, is something that connects with you, then you know what? That's cool. But secondly, Alita, what are you doing giving a boy your heart? This girl really took out her organs so her boyfriend, who she just met, could run away from her to another city. Girl, no wonder you ended up in a junkyard with that logic. They end up coming up with a plan to win at this motorball tournament, which will give them a one-way ticket to Zalem. And while I'm not saying that I was expecting a whole Quidditch breakdown, considering that this is like a brand new sport we don't know nothing about, I would have appreciated it. There comes a point in that match where no one's even going for the ball to score, but everyone there is actually set up to kill Alita. So like the announcers, the refs, and the audience are well aware they're witnessing a hit going on in the stadium. And there are like no flags on the field to call a penalty. Alita ends up escaping, because obviously she's Alita, and goes to help Hugo since Nova has put out a hit on both of them, and he sadly gets killed by a hitman. But not really. Alita does end up using her heart to revive Hugo long enough in order to get him back to the lab so Dr. Dyson can make him his own body. And Alita meanwhile puts some flexi tape on her wounds, defeats some goons, and realizes that her mission way back in the day was in fact to not go live in Zalem, but to take out Nova, who's being played by Edward Norton. Before she can even get up there to Fight Club him, Hugo takes his new body out for a spin, and he tries climbing up Zalem and dies again. Bro, you get one per movie. Alita then goes back to the motorball tourney where she points her sword to the sky, praying to the execs that they greenlit the sequel. Or, you know, give that money to Denny in the Dune remake. Thank you guys for checking out this video. Again, my verdict is, it's weird to spend so much money for what ends up being a stream, in my opinion. You know, my girlfriend thought it was a rent, and she liked it a lot more than I did. A lot of other people overseas are loving it, but I felt like for 2 hours, for it to end right where the story seems like it should actually be beginning, it's crazy. 200 million plus for a setup. Yo, wildin'. I am curious to see if they continue the series, because like I said, I don't hate the world. I just wish we knew more about how it worked. You know, it's like when you visit a nice city, you want to go back, you just wish the people were more interesting and that there was no Jai Courtney. But I already know there's going to be defenders for it out there. I know some people are going to be like, of course she needs the food. The atoms created and it uses all her energy. She needs the eyes because she's a fighter. Sure, it still doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I'm putting that there because I can guarantee you're going to see those comments down below from the Alita defenders. Speaking of which, I will say the best scene in the movie, hands down, was when Alita's having her emotional moment and this girl, for whatever reason, like, again, this $200 million for this thing. So that means that they got to animate this right here. She straight up fruit ninjas her tear. That's where the money was going in for this. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts down below. Did you care for it? Did you feel like it was just beginning? Are you actually excited for the other 4 that are coming out? Any of your thoughts down below in the comment section. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll send you your own thumb.